Alright guys, I'm going to be reviewing some of the algebra end of course reviews with you guys. I'm going to go over certain questions and I really hope you guys will do great on the upcoming exam. So the first question I'm going to go over is number 1, and this is where you have to use distributive property as well as combining like terms. So this one's from review number 1. And it says simplify. Alright, so the first thing we want to look for is if we have distributive property. And we do. Whenever there's not a number in front of the parentheses, it's going to be a 1. And so since we're multiplying 1 to everything, it's going to end up staying the same. So let's go ahead and do that. And then here we have a negative 1. Okay, so don't forget that that's a negative 1. And we're going to be multiplying the negative 1 to each term inside the parentheses. Alright, so then the first term, it stays the same. 2x squared. Now 1 times 4 is just going to be the same thing. Anything times 1 is itself, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. Okay, and then we have the plus 9. And now we're going to distribute the negative 1. So we're going to have negative 1 times 6 is negative 6x. And this is the part where a lot of kids get it wrong because they forget that the negative 1 also distributes to the 3. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And then we combine like terms. And in this case, we have the x squares. Those are your like terms. And 2 and negative 6x squared ends up being negative 4x squared. And we have other like terms. We have the positive 4x and the negative 6x, which ends up being negative 2x. And we combine the other like terms, which is positive 9 and negative 3. Which ends up being positive 6. Now we cannot combine the x squared or the x because they are different. This is x to the second power, this is just x to the 1 power. They are different terms. So since we can't combine anything anymore, that is my answer. Ta-da! Alright, let's go over another one that's also like terms and distributive property, which is this one from your review number 2. So we are going to do the distributive property. We have a number in front of the parentheses. We're going to distribute it to each term inside the parentheses. So now the first term stays the same, 9q squared. Here we have 2/3 times 3. We're multiplying a fraction with a whole number. So I'm going to do the work up here so you can see what to do. So it's 2/3 times 3. We have to put this over 1 and we multiply across. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3, and now 6 divided by 3 is 2. So this is a negative times a positive, so it ends up being negative 2q. Then we have negative 2/3 times negative 7. Well, we know it's going to be positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. Now we need to multiply the 2/3 times the 7, doing the same thing. So we're going to multiply 2/3 times 7 over 1. This ends up being 14 over 3. And 14 doesn't divide evenly into 3. So we are going to leave it alone, and we're going to have positive 14 over 3. And we bring this down, plus 5q squared. Now we're not done. We still need to combine like terms. And we do have like terms. We have the q squared with the q squared. Those are both positive, so you ended up adding them, and it becomes 14q squared. And we bring down the 2q. There's nothing else to add to the 2q. So it's going to be minus 2q, and we bring down the number plus 14 over 3. And there's your answer. We cannot combine any more. And there you go. So let's go ahead and do another one. This one's going to be very similar to the review you got for the Easter break. Okay. All right. So we're going to do the distributive property. As you can see, there's a term in front. It's multiplying, so it's distributive property. Here as well, the 3's in front of the parentheses, it's distributive property. If there would have been a plus or a minus, you can't do distributive property. It's only when you're multiplying. So we are going to multiply each term here to each one. And we're going to multiply the 3 to each term inside those parentheses. Okay, so you have to be careful because here you have an m times an m. And whenever you multiply, you add the exponents for the variable. So that's an exponent of 1. That one's an exponent of 1. So m times m is 1 plus 1, which is 2. So it's m squared. Now we need to figure out the numbers. So it's 2 times 5 halves. So I'm going to do the work over here on the top. 2 times 5 halves. We put this over 1 and we multiply across. So 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 2 is 2. And it's 10 over 2. But 10 divided by 2 ends up being 5. So that one should be 5m squared. And now we do the distributive property for the next one. 2 times 6, that is positive 12. And of course the m. Now we do the other side. 3 times 7/3 m. So again, I'm going to do a little work over here. 3 times 7/3. Put this over 1. Multiply across. So that's 21 over 3. And 21 divided by 3 is 7. So that ends up being plus 7m, because that m goes with it. And now 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. But we're not done. We need to see if we can combine any like terms. And we do have some like terms. We have the two m's in the middle. We have plus 12m plus 7m. So you leave the first term alone, 5m squared. We combine those two, so 12 plus 7, because they're both the same sign, ends up being 19m and minus 12. And we cannot combine anymore. That's an m squared, that's an m, so there's your answer. All right.